Welcome to another episode of the Chrissy Mayer podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you are listening right now on iTunes, please go and leave a 5-star review. I will be reading the best reviews every week, so long as they are 5 stars. Just go on. It could be sexy. It could be weird. It could be funny. Just as long as it's 5 stars, I will be reading them. Here is one I just saw. Okay, Chrissy, keep doing your thing, girl. Great podcast. Found out about Chrissy in Roast Battles and Gas Digital. Love the last podcast and the Roast Ghost podcast. OMG, girl. You looking fine AF. That means that. Anyhow, saw your last show in LA before the world ended. Me and my buddy talk about it being the funniest show we ever saw. Wow. Real Ass Podcast fan and O&A fan, all day. Wow, thank you so much. Sand Bunker. Oh, that might be the best review of all time. And it's really, really funny that he did that show in LA. Literally was the last headlining show I did on March 8th. But that was a fun time. So excited to have this guy on the podcast today. He has been a friend of mine for years. His special 25 sets is on Amazon right now. He's also one of the hosts of In Hot Water on Compound Media. Aaron Berg, how are you?
Hi, Chrissy. Your hair looks nice.
Thank you so much. I just got it done yesterday, and I had not had a haircut, nothing, in like 5 months since March. And it's like, I mean, you know, because you have a wife, how like life-changing changing your hair, updating or fixing your hair. It's like my whole mood, everything's just like, I have hope again.
Yeah.
Because the roots were, I mean, like my real color was coming through. It was just like more roots than anybody was comfortable seeing. And yeah, I cut like, you know, there was like a lot of dead hanging off. So, you know.
Where did you go?
I actually went somewhere in town near where I live, like in the neighborhood in Westchester, and it was expensive. It was like $55 more than I'm used to paying.
I think girls' haircuts are like $300, right?
Wasn't quite that much. So like, I mean, I hate talking about money, but like I think for the purposes of this, it was like $235 for a cut and a color. And I think they charged me $5 extra because they make you buy a face mask, because you come in with one, and then after they dye you and wash you out, like before the, I don't know, I guess the cutting starts, they give you another face mask, because I guess they've gotten, you know, hair dye all over the came in with. And then they go, oh, we're charging you $5 for a mask. And I'm like, that seems steep. You know
what if you just said this whole thing's a hoax? I want my $5 back. They give you your $5 back.
I actually thought about going into it, but also, why not tell people to bring 2 masks when they go to get their hair done?
Did you take the $5 out of the tip?
No, I didn't, because I gave $5 to the girl who like washed, you know, the dye out, the wash girl, and then like 40 to the lady who.
I would have thought about taking the tip back, and then I would have been like, it's not their fault, and then I would have still tipped them normal, but I would have. My Jew brain would have kicked in and been like, I should take $5 off of that.
I did really think about it. I sort of harumphed on my way out, but I was like, you know what? I haven't spent any money on my hair in 5 months. So in a sense, I did save money by not.
Good.
Like maybe.
That's good logic. Yeah.
So.
If you're like, yeah, I couldn't go get my hair done, so I've been saving money. That's great.
Yeah.
I've saved money on no therapy. What else? What else have I been? Not driving to indoor gigs. I've been saving money on a whole bunch of stuff.
Stop going to therapy, because I know you started going. Did you start going by yourself, or you started going with Christine?
I think we started going together, and then I went to the guy that everybody in the city goes to. All the comics go to this guy, Alan.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm done with this guy. Every time I went in, I just come out and want to fight with my wife.
I didn't like him. I didn't like him either. And I started to go see him because, like, okay, you know, I used to date Pat, for those of you who don't know, another comedian. And he was seeing Alan, which is the comedy therapist. Like, I would be in the waiting room, and I used to see his wife, Beverly. I'd be in the waiting room. I'd see, like, Sam Morrell. I'd see, like, you know, I'd see, like, half a lineup before I would wait to go in.
Whole bunch of fucked up people waiting out there.
And he's also Alan. I think his name's Alan Lefkowitz. He's been written up like many times for being like the therapist to the comedy stars or whatever. And I was like, oh, this is fun. He's going to get me. And then I started to go to couples therapy with him. So basically, he and I would see his therapist, and I did not like it at all. I felt so ganged up on. I felt like, I'm like, wow, the backdrop here is like for months he's been telling this guy basically that everything wrong with the relationship is my fault. So now I felt like the couples therapy was like, I felt really ganged up on, and I did not enjoy it. I did not feel heard. And but yeah, that doesn't mean, you have one bad experience, don't ever see therapist again. Like I like the one I have now that I've had for like 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go back again. I mean, Alan, I was just like, this is not fun, not good. You have this notion that you're supposed to go to therapy to feel good about yourself. That is not what he specialized in at all. It's just like, you got to do this, and you're just like, I feel like shit all the time because of this. And I was happier before I went to therapy, but it was a nightmare. So I save all that money now. And but it's a pandemic. What are we gonna do? We're broke.
Yeah, what are we gonna do? Yeah. And at one point I was seeing mine like twice a week, and then I was like, well, now it's just once a week. It's a phone call, and I'm okay with it. I'm cool with it because I still have lingering like anger issues towards my dad. Like my whole family moved away. They all live in different states. Like I talked to her about like sort of comedy stuff too. So I feel like it is worth, the once a week.
I used to do that. I remember when we were going through like the fake Pilot situation, and I would talk to him, and he'd be like, comedy has an impact, and I was like, yeah, but these people are wrong. Our comedy makes people laugh. Well, it may seem that way. And he also liked Gary Goldman's special better than my documentary, and that made me dislike him a great deal. Because he's like, I watched it, and I was like, very professionally done. We don't learn anything about you emotionally. And I was like, yeah, it's not called Aaron Berg's Emotions. It's called 25 Sets. So
I think we do learn a lot about you emotionally. There's a scene where your wife cries talking about how proud she is of you. Like you're going through like a huge, it's a huge like undertaking. Trying to do 25 sets in a night. It's like we see how you work, your determination, your discipline, and also how funny you are.
But I didn't cry and say, "Is my father proud of me?" And that would have made Alan happy. Yeah, what a nightmare.
Not have like the classic therapy reaction. I did not like that guy either.
Yeah, that's therapy. It's done, and now it's a lovely Sunday, and I had dinner, which is why we couldn't do this earlier. We had scallops, and we were in the midst of domestic bliss, we call it, because we're getting ready to move. We think we want to move, get out of the city a little bit.
I think
not too far.
That's a big trend. Is like people are moving out of the city fast.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the last couple months, I've been seeing, hey, New House, Connecticut. Hey, we moved to Jersey. Hey, we moved to Westchester. So, because I just
it's a shithole, Chrissy. City's a shithole.
You took the subway for the first time this week. How did that
Twice.
go? Oh, twice.
There was. I get offended when I see people make the pandemic a racial thing. Like, I don't know if you follow Nori Davis on Twitter, and Nori's a very good comedian, but he's very woke. So he has these standpoints where he's like, yo, white people, why you always out not wearing masks? And it's like, have you been to Penn Station? Because that's not, but it's just amazing to see racism work in two different ways over a theme like that. So I rode the subway, and there was the first day there was a white guy with like his shirt pulled all the way up and his belly hanging out, and I was like, what the fuck? And then the second day there's just a black dude, no mask on, just looking at everybody, and you're like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Are you gonna say, hey, because I don't care about it enough.
Your mask on, yeah.
And then what if you get stabbed over telling? So, and I've had those things on the subway. I had somebody say they were going to stab me, and I was just like, "Go, stab me, try it," and then they didn't. But it's interesting. It's a shithole. The subway's a dump. The city's a dump. The reason you moved to New York is for the culture and as a comic to do stand-up all the time. And now it's like, that's gone. It'll come back gradually. There's outdoor shows and stuff, but it's still like, what are you getting ready for? You're not going to do a late night. It'll be really hard to get a special together, which is what I'm trying to do. But there's no point in being here all the time or being in such close proximity where you're like, I got to be 20 minutes away from the club. So I think I want a house and shit like that. And I feel like I've earned that. I've been working for 19 years as a comic, and it's like, I should have a house with a pool and only go in Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't feel like I need to do, I'm not less funny if I don't do stand-up 6 or 7 days a week.
Exactly. Like the whole idea that if you're not grinding 6 or 7 nights a week, you're not good as a comic. Like, I think that sort of grind is necessary at the very beginning, since if you have no idea what you're saying is funny and you don't know your rhythm, you don't know your jokes yet, you don't have material yet. Yeah, but like you've been doing it, what, like 15 years or so already at this point? 19. So you know what's funny. You can try brand new jokes, right on.
Yeah.
And they'll probably end up working, or if they don't, you can come back.
There's also that fear if you don't do it. If I go a few days without it now, I do get a little squirrely and a little angry. And that didn't happen like during lockdown. I was like, I'm fine without this. I'll just have more fun on In Hot Water. But now it's like, oh, okay, I gotta get out and say some shit, and try. But it's a difficult time now. I don't know where you're at comedically, because I haven't seen you do stand-up since like right before lockdown. But you were on the Comedians of the Compound show on March 13th. March 13th. And that was a great show.
Yeah.
But now it's like, to lean in now and be honest about the stuff, like have so many jokes that are like, anti-Chinese, I think. And it's like to watch people. Cypher Sounds was hosting the show I did the other night, and his wife is Asian. And before the show, she's like, oh, you're so funny. And I came off after, and she was like, and I was like, oh boy, because I like call it the China flu, and I say like I don't support China anymore. And
good.
It was,
there's
I guess
people who agree with you than who don't agree with you. And for you to not talk about the things you're feeling right now is, what I mean? Like if you were to try to do some other woke appropriate set, like people can feel that. An audience can feel when you're not being authentic. And it's like, yeah, maybe the shows out in the city that you're doing, like have people going, oh, but like the rest of the country would respond well.
It's amazing to perform. Like I did a show in Long Island, and you're like, oh, this is America. Yeah. And it's like, in the clubs in the city, I still have that polish and I can still push. But it's like, there people are like, oh my God, this guy's saying stuff we're thinking, which is, it's a slippery slope to still maintain your individual thought and not pander and not, be like, in the small towns, if you're killing, you're like, I should move here and be the mayor because they love me so much. Yeah. You don't want to do that. You still want to, the best comedy is still going to walk that line and not cling to politics too strong. I think DePaulo, as great as he is, would be better if he was kind of, bipartisan on some of his thoughts. And I think that dividing that stuff makes it better comedy.
Yeah. And like you said before, like it really sucks that the corona has to be so politicized, and like, why do we have to make it a race thing? It's like, look, if you are looking through the lens of life and that lens is racism, you're going to be looking for examples of it everywhere you turn. Just like if I'm looking through life through the lens of feminism or misogyny or everybody, all my situations in life, are they feminist or not feminist? Is someone hate women? Like, is something bad happening to me because they hate me because I'm a woman? If that's how I'm looking at life, I'm going to find plenty examples of that. Just like if somebody's looking at life through racism, guess what? You're going to find a lot of examples of racism that maybe have nothing to do with racism at all. It could just do with, the kinds of crap.
It's like, I heard this thing where it's like, why are these numbers so disproportionately high in the Black and Latin community? And then it's like, go to Penn Station. They're not wearing masks. I went to a black show last night. Everyone's shaking hands. That's the first thing I've been at where everyone's going out of their way to shake hands. Every other show I go to, you're fist bumping or your elbow bumping or whatever. But it's like, hey, what's up? And like sweating and stuff like that. And you're like, oh my God, I get it now. It's like
the public, we're sick of the bullshit. We heard early on, masks do nothing. It says on the package of masks, unless they're N95, they do nothing. We've heard that kids really aren't getting it. We've heard if you're asymptomatic, it is extremely rare that you would pass it on to somebody else. Like we've heard, it's so hard to know all this information and still be like obsessively wearing your mask. I saw a guy in the pool the other day by by Frank's family's condo, whatever is upstate, is like a public pool. There's a guy wearing plastic gloves and a mask going into the hot tub. And I was like, is he fucking serious? But I think the majority of people are so sick of it. We were told it was 2 weeks. Then we were told it was a month. Now it's what, 6 months later? And people are worried about their businesses and keeping their family from starving or whatever.
There's a woman on Twitter today. This, I don't know if you saw, Veronica Garza is her name.
Yes, she was shitting on the fact that, so Stand Up New York is this club in the city, and they've been having, I think have been doing, them and the Stand, I think have been doing the most in terms of supporting comics through this and really doing everything they can to have shows. And Stand Up New York first had like an inside mic type show, which I think you did. This was like a couple months back.
Yeah.
And there was like weird backlash from that. Even like Amy Hawthorne from New York Comedy Club had a problem with that. And it's like we're making who did the show versus who didn't do the show. We're making that like now that's a divisive thing among comics when we should be supporting comics. Venues and bookers should be supporting comics, not shaming them for doing shows. And so now Stand Up New York has these outdoor shows in Central Park, like all the parks, you know, like maybe 6 or 7 different parks. And this other comic, Veronica Garza, who I know, who like she would do comedy at Stonewall pretty often. I'd have her on.
Yeah.
She's a nice girl. So I was like really surprised to see that. And it was basically like, oh, what's the booking process for Stand Up New York? Are they just booking people? Like I'm seeing a lot of new unfunny faces. And it was the lineup, the Central Park lineup, which I think your wife, Christine, also a friend of mine, was on. And then so now everybody who's on that lineup is going, am I the unfunny one? Who is she talking about? Does she mean me? And I just don't find that helpful.
But it's like, you've been through this shit before, so you know when to deal with somebody online and when not. So first of all, you look at her Twitter presence, which is minimal. And then you look at her actual stand-up and you're like, oh, this girl's not funny. So right away you're just like, that any comment she makes about funny, she doesn't know about funny because she's not funny. So it's like, do you really want to drag somebody like that? But then she's also like, people are risking their lives to do this show in a park. And it's like, if you really think you can't go outside to a park and talk with no microphone, you're mentally ill. Like you've bought into so much shit, you're mentally ill. Your comedy's not going to help her. And I saw Greg Stone was nice to her. He's a comic. He's like, look, just keep your head down, focus on your own thing. I'm like, no, bitch, fucking, you're not funny. Find something else to do because this is not your thing. I've gone through the same. When I was trying to get into the cellar, I'd be like, why are they working these people? But I would keep it to myself. I'm not going to yell about it.
That doesn't look good. I think people who openly criticize like publicly like that, they don't realize how bad the venue is going to look upon that. And other comics see that and go, ooh, just like you and I right now are looking at that and go, ooh, like don't judge other people for trying to work. And also you're not risking your life. Like, come on.
Yeah. And it's also like, that's what you choose is a $25 spot in the park to go after. Where it's like you're really missing out on so much. And the Stand Up New York people are great people. They take chances. They're edgy. They were the first people to have Roseanne Barr back on a stage, you know? So they like pushing buttons. And it's just like, I watched this thing where there was this fear that after this Corona shit was done, these clubs would all be going woke. And now I think you're just seeing like, oh no, that we can't deal with shit like that. Let's just book funny people. I mean, they'll book more diverse, but I don't think they're going to book woke. And I think, you know, you'll see like a lot more black gay acts, but they're going to be the best of the black gay acts. And it's just not going to be like, my life is miserable because I'm black and gay.
It's funny because like what we see, the get woke or get broke applies to Nike, applies to all the major corporations, right? Like Facebook, everybody's got to, like, whether they fully believe it or not, appear to be woke, you know, in all aspects. But that doesn't really work for the comedy industry, because if you want to be woke and you're a comedy venue, guess what? Like, you're not going to have any shows. You are going to not make any money. So you look at the Stand and you look at Stand Up New York. And to me, those are the clubs in New York City that really stand out as being pro comic and pro, I guess, wanting to stay in business.
Yeah. And hustle it. I mean, you know, they could have just been like, all right, let's try and get small business loans and get through this. But they're like, no, let's get back to what we do. I went into that club like right when this hit, and when I first got back to New York, and there was like a sign like, what else can we turn the club into? And they just had a list of like joke things. And then they were like, no, we're going to keep doing comedy. So,
and that's the thing, is there are so many comics. Guess what? The ones that want to work can, and the ones that don't and want to be scared, you know, no one's going to force them to. That's the beauty of, you know, kind of letting the market decide. And if there's people who will fill these shows, they'll go. And the people that have gone to these shows, especially the ones you and I have done, like the secret shows in Westchester, the crowds are more enthusiastic and happy to be there than I've seen. Like, so
there's something really freeing about it, right? Because when everybody got locked down, there's no freedom of speech, there's no live entertainment, and then it's like taking something back. It's having this power to be able to go out and say whatever you want to say and have people enjoy it. And it's a glorious thing, you know? I mean, it's like once money starts getting back, like this is the first week that I've made good money doing stand-up since we've been back. And I'm like, oh, okay, now, you know, that grind is back. But for a while, it was just like, oh, this is this glorious form of artistic expression. And I did my Black Lives Splatter joke for the first time, like 3 nights ago, and it destroyed. And I was like, oh, okay, comedy's back. We can still do. Because I didn't know if I'd be able to do that after. You know, I was like, oh, maybe that joke's going to be gone. Maybe people are going to be too sensitive. But I feel like it's got that time. I still haven't done any really good George Floyd jokes on stage yet.
Oh my God.
Because I feel like that's going to.
You know, that one George Floyd joke that you told at the secret show, I still laugh at that. I mean, like, you're going to be fine because you're the real deal. And like, that's what I respect a lot about you, but I remember like we first sort of bonded 2 years ago after the Kate Willett thing happened. And I called you and you like gave me really good advice because, and like, okay, what's a quick way I can sort of sum this up for people who have no clue what I'm talking about? There was this woke comic, Kate Willett. She had, you know, decent credits, better credits than me at the time. She had a 15-minute Comedy Central special, and she went on to a show in Compound Media called Mornin', and Gino, who's your co-host, was on there. And then, like, he's bawdy. He likes to push buttons. He likes to, you know, push the envelope. So she got offended at something having to do with, like, a Native American Halloween costume. And then she walks off. And then I come on the next day, basically as her. I had a dark wig on. And my whole bit was going to be like, oh, I'm just going to go on your show in hot water just to say I forgot my jacket. But, like, oh, I don't want to talk to Gino. I'm just going to get my jacket and leave. And you ended up introducing me like, oh, here's Kate Willett. So now I'm doing an impression of her, right? Super funny. Fans love it. They take a screenshot because it's a subscription network, right? So not everybody can watch it publicly. Fans took a screenshot. Oh, Chrissy's so funny. It's Kate Willett, blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, like she had been messaging me privately, basically like, how dare you? And the fans started to come after her.
Akin to harassment, basically, saying, why would you do this? I'll let all the comedy people know in New York what you're doing. Basically akin to harassment, threatening that if you kept doing this, you wouldn't work in New York.
Meaning like my making fun of her, which guess what? Like we're all public figures. Like we're all vulnerable to parody, just like any celebrity, you know, anybody with a following, anyone who's been on TV, which is all of us. Yeah, we can be made fun of. And I ended up doing like a Michelle Wolf impression like 2 weeks later. And that was great for some reason. But me making fun of her was like a huge fucking problem. And one of the fans was like, you know, saying, oh, she's really uptight because Compound Media, we have like really great engagement. The fans love the shows. This is why they come out to the live shows. So one of the fans was like, oh, she's really uptight. Like, how could she leave a show like that? You know, she needs a railroad spike up the keister, right? So I come in the next day as the railroad spike. I wrap myself in tinfoil, but I was like the anti-rape railroad spike. And I was like, I'm here to let people know I don't want to be up anyone's keister. I'm anti-rape. Like, that was the whole point of the character, you know, like a rail at home.
You had a family. You had little railroad spikes at home.
About to be up anyone's keister, you know. Same thing. Fans loved it. Took screenshots, put them on Twitter. And then it gets twisted to the point where, wow, look at Chrissy. She's going on as this raping railroad spike. She's encouraging harassment of Kate. She's a monster, like all the worst shit. And this went on for like maybe a good 6 weeks, 2 months or so.
Oh, yeah. And they were trying to cancel all of us. And then they got my wife involved. And it turns out she's a mental patient. So she took this thing that was a joke and goes, I'm receiving rape threats. I can't go out of the house without men. And then we find out, you know, her ex-boyfriend overdoses right after they break up. Kind of strange. And now she's dating the podcast partner of the dead ex-boyfriend who was caught making a porno where he ate cum. So I'm not saying I've always dated the best people, but I'm saying at some point, maybe it's you. And I think that something is going to come up where it's going to crumble. She's one of those people that, you know, these people that yell the loudest are hiding the most. So there's a lot of shit that woman is hiding. And it's, you know, I let it die for a while, but now it gets infuriating when you see the people she surrounded herself with and see how they're starting to fall by the wayside. And you just know it's almost a hashtag time's up for her. You know, you can feel it working the opposite way. And it's so weird that the other side was doing this to us. And we were like, we're not going to do that to the other side. I remember going into Real Ass Podcast being like, look, this guy's trying to cancel this. I'm like, we should make a list of the people that are trying to cancel people. And Lewis goes, no, it's just, that's fallen to their level. But all of a sudden, people got so sick of it, and they know that these people do bad shit. That's why they go the other way. That's why their comedy has to be so good and so clean and so progressive, because the rest of this, look, I'm not a filthy fuck all the time. I don't eat my wife's ass every day, like I say on stage, you know, but it's like, there's something, when you're a good person, your comedy can be dark and can be bad, because that's the realm that you want to explore. These people want to explore good shit because their lives are dark and horrible.
Yeah. And like comics like you and I, and it's like there has been sort of, and I feel like this happened 2 years ago, really, like maybe more than 2 years ago, but I feel like up until now, there has been this kind of comedy civil war going on. I talked about it with Paul Verzi in a previous episode. I think I talked about it with Lewis on the episode I did with him. Even, you know, Don Jameson. There's like the woke comics, and then there's the comics who like put funny above all else. And at the end of the day are like, yeah, my job is to make people laugh. Like if my politics or my opinions come in with that, okay. But if it's not funny, I'm not saying it.
Yeah.
It's really crazy that the ones that are so preachy and using identity politics and put themselves on a pedestal, and they think they're taking the moral high ground, and it's like, oh, you're dating a guy who ate his own cum on a video that's public. You know what I mean? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, wow, it's just the people that are the preachiest. And that was crazy. She rallied so many fucking people against me, and that's the thing, is like a lot of these comics who are like maybe newer, they go, oh, she's got a Comedy Central 15-minute special. I'm on her side because maybe she has something to offer me in the future. And instead of anybody looking into it or anybody trying to get the footage, they're just like, oh, well, Chrissy, you're the fucking worst, and talking behind my back in these fucking Facebook chats on her wall, and then would block me. You know, it's like, let's have a conversation about it, you know? Mm-hmm. It really bothers me.
And the conversations do solve the most. Like, I remember when we did White Guys Matter in Toronto, and so many people got upset. And my friend Dave Merhesh, who's a very funny comic, he was at the stand, and he said, hey, man, what's up with this show? And why'd you do it? And I explained it to him, and he was like, okay, I get it. And that was it. And, you know, he's like a Muslim guy. and a funny comic, but he has the balls to go up to someone and talk to them about it. These people don't. They don't want to get to the root of it, and they don't want to converse about it. So it just lays stagnant, and it all becomes hearsay. And it doesn't improve the situation. It just increases the divide.
Yeah. So you did a show called White Guys Matter, and I'm assuming it was like a tongue-in-cheek, kind of like sarcastic take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got so upset. It was so funny. People are still upset about it. 2 years later, they're still upset about it.
And it's like, that's the thing though. It's like, all the woke comics and woke industry people, everyone can get behind, there's nothing wrong with making fun of white people. There's nothing wrong with making fun of white guys. There's nothing wrong with making fun of white women. Why is that accepted, but we can't poke fun at other stereotypes, which is insane, because that is how everybody in all their groups of friends have been laughing at and will be laughing at till the fucking end of time. Like,
yeah,
that's what comedy is laughing at yourself, laughing at other people, noticing things about humanity, and not pretending that these things don't exist. So yeah, and it bothered me, like, she was in people's ears. Like, I got a call from the woman I was working with. She was doing casting at America's Got Talent, and she was like, I'm at this, I think it was the Big Sky Festival. She's like, I'm at this festival. Your name's not good right now. I've been talking to Kate Willett. She says XYZ. She was making people harass her, and like, how dare you? She wasn't even like really listening to my side. Like, she called me to quote, give me the heads up about this.
Yeah.
I could tell her mind was made up, and I just was like, for a minute, it did sort of scare me, because I was like, oh my God, how many other people is she telling this? You know, it's
yeah.
And then I realized, Kate is somebody who thrives on being a victim. She used the Me Too movement to her advantage. She just wants to step on other people to look good and get ahead, and kind of let it go. But it's still like, now at this point, like, I feel bad for her and people who feel the need to operate this way. Just like, we have like Jake Flores and Seth Simon. These are people who like comedy. They write about, is the skunk back?
No, it wasn't a skunk. I think it was a mouse or a really big cockroach. I need to move. Jesus Christ. See that?
I didn't see it. Where was it?
I just jumped up. Because
I would rather see a mouse than a cockroach. Like, I just fucking can't handle insects.
My backyard's nice, but it's like at night, apparently it's a goddamn mess in here.
Ugh.
Oh well. Okay, what we were saying.
It's not forever. Yeah, it just bothers me. And then we have these like, comedy critics like Jake Flores and Seth Simons who love picking on groups of funny people. It's like, let us be funny. If you don't like it, move the fuck out.
Yeah.
Find something that you like.
I mean, there's something cool about the fact that it's rebellious and we get to fight against something, but it's like, we're already fighting against enough, like to try and be funny constantly and to try and get rich doing this. And it's like, there's so much of a battle that these people come in, and it's just like, you can't work certain clubs because some woke unfunny bitch said some shit to them, and it's like, that kind of sucks. But then it's also like, and this, it's like you start to carve out your own audience, and that audience is much hungrier for real entertainment than these middle of the road. I never understood middle of the road comedy. I could never get it. I remember this guy in Canada where he's like, it's comedy. It shouldn't be extreme. And I was like, no, it should be. It should be extreme. But it's like, you want to make people laugh till their bellies hurt, till they're spitting, and I think that speaks louder than just like, that guy was okay. He didn't offend me. That was okay. I wouldn't want that. I would rather have people walk out and be disgusted and have the other 97% dying laughing and have those 3% of people hate you. This is a thing that we dealt with, and you're seeing the evidence of it now, where it's like, okay, just keep doubling down, because you can't apologize, because an apology is nothing. They want more, and they want more, and they want more.
They want you to never ever work again. They want you,
like the dead guy that overdosed. He sent out, he's like, Gino Visconti and Aaron Berg should not work anywhere in New York City.
Wow.
And now he's working every club in hell. He's dead. He can't come back. He's dead. He killed himself because she broke up with him, and he got sad, and then he overdosed, And then she wrote an article blaming it on the lack of universal health care, that he did not have access to his medication. So he started
that. She was like fully using it to her advantage. She was like, oh, let me get in with the, he was a Bernie bro, just like me. Like she was fully using that to her advantage.
It's amazing how you put politics together. Our side never does that. We're just like, oh, it's funny, and here's some good people. That's all that you take from that, you know? Not, we wanted to stop all the suffering in the world together. Me and old Raghav, and I remember injecting him with heroin, saying, this will be the fix that gets us through. What a horrible person.
Maybe focus on you and your issues, and maybe get to a point where you're not going to overdose on drugs rather than trying to shut somebody else down and, you know, keep other people from creating because you don't appreciate what they do.
It's
like,
so
kind of like
funny.
live and let live until you come after us.
Yeah.
Then we'll stand up for ourselves.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. And there's this great divide in the nation now, and you're part of the forefront of that. You know, you're one of these people that preaches where we go all together, then we go there to that one place all together, the one where we WWG we go with. I have no idea about all that stuff, but it's very fun to watch you do it, and it's so fun to watch the way that you troll people now. That Chrissy Teigen thing is so fun to watch.
Whoa, I had no idea when I tweeted that, like how much of a lighting the match that was going to be on, because there were people waiting behind me with so much shit on her and so many saved sketchy pedo tweets that she had made over the years since like 2009. And there's people with a lot more dirt on her than I did, and they were all just like ready. And I was just like, boom, why'd you delete all these tweets? Like thousands of tweets, you know? And everybody was like, yeah, that is odd. And it's crazy. And it's like Twitter and Facebook, it's like they are sucking these celebrities dicks. You know what I mean? Like these are not all coincidences, right? Like I said, hey, you deleted 30,000 tweets. She responded to me, which was dumb on her part. She responded with, no, actually it was 60,000 tweets that I deleted. And then she blocked 1 million people. And then what happened? Twitter has a full blackout. All the people with the blue check marks are locked out for 12 hours. And then Twitter starts banning QAnon people or anybody that has anything to do with coming out against sex trafficking and child porn. These are not all coincidences, you know? And just today, I saw, like, somebody tagged me. There was a legit child porn account on Twitter with videos, pictures, and it's like fucking disgusting because I've never seen anything like this in my life. And it's almost like it has to be right under your nose for certain people to wake up. And I was just like reporting it and tweeting about it. And it's like, oh, wow, this is an hour, 2 hours later, it's still up. But Twitter will bend over backwards for their celebrities, but they won't shut down child porn. It really makes me so angry because it's like,
isn't it amazing, like the divide between left and right and the insult terms now are like, if you're on the right, you're racist. If you're on the left, you're a kid fucker. It's like these two things that were the worst things that you could say to somebody. It's divided by a side now, and I don't know how much truth there is to it. I don't know if Tom Hanks wears an ankle bracelet. I don't know if he wants to move to Greece so that he can just get money for being a pedophile. I don't know how it works, but it's intriguing. And that racism tag has lost all of its meaning, where it's like, oh, this guy's a racist. Like, really?
Yeah.
It's been so overused because they've taken the term so out of context now. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it really doesn't, because it's just been overused way too much. And I don't know, I think that, and that's the thing, is like, I'm a white girl, so if I say how I truly feel, which I feel like racism is kind of an illusion, like in your day-to-day life, like if you're,
then you're a racist if you say that.
Choosing to see the world through a racist lens, you're gonna find a lot of it. If you choose to see the world as opportunities flow to me easily, money comes to me, good people come to me, guess what? That's going to be the life that you live. If you're constantly thinking about everyone's against me, oh, it's because I'm black, it's because I'm Spanish, it's this or that, well, guess what? That's going to be your life because you're choosing to put it out there. So it's like you're ultimately just holding yourself back, I think, if that's how you're choosing to see the world. I don't know. But what I love about you're in Gino's show, which is In Hot Water on Compound Media, Monday through Thursday at 2 o'clock, which is very exciting because you're leading into Anthony Cumia's show.
Yeah, how great's that?
Yeah, top 2 shows on the network. Has there ever been a time where on that show you feel like you pushed the envelope too much?
No, I sometimes feel like I'm holding back because I'm like, this isn't worth getting into this shit for. So it's like, if I could go back in time and we dealt with that Willett situation where, you know, Gino lit the cease and desist envelope on fire. And then we were like, okay, that's enough because we don't want to have to get shut down. And also Keith was running the network at the time. So he's like, all right, this is too much trouble. Then I would have been like, if I could go back, I'd be like, we should have gone further.
Interesting.
We should have gone further. And I don't feel like, I feel like the show needs to evolve and we need to push more. I feel like racial stereotypes are a thing that we kind of went through already. And now it's like we've really found our comedic voices and the way that all 4 of us work together. So now I think it's time to push further. And I think it's going to be like man on the street stuff because there's so much gold within 20 feet of that studio. When you go outside and there's heroin addicts everywhere and there's just like lawlessness in the streets, it's like, why are we in New York if we're not covering that stuff? And I just got inspired because I watched like some old clip of an O&A thing where they were doing some man on the street stuff. And I was like, oh, that's what we're missing. Yeah. We gotta get on the streets and we gotta talk to these people that are losing their shit. And it's also, you know, I feel like we've held back a little bit in terms of blowing up as far as we should have. Like that idea we had, like we roast George Floyd. I thought that would have been a huge thing, but it's also like, where do you decide where it's funny versus what it's worth? Because it's like, if you do that, you know you're going to get death threats, like real death threats, not like someone said I should put a railroad spike up my ass.
Right.
And, you know, when you watch what happened to like Ari Shaffir over the Kobe joke and stuff like that. And it was like, you know, and that shook him. And he's usually an unshakable guy where he's like, none of this is real. It's all online. But it's like when it starts affecting, you know, people were calling in bomb threats to comedy clubs or whatever they were doing. I think then it's like, all right, how far do we push this before it's too far? And comedically, I don't think there is too far. But when it's like, oh, if there's people outside my house with a gun and my wife and daughter are sleeping, then it's a problem. It's gone too far because it's not just me. So I think we could push further. I don't think we've gone too far. There's some stuff that I watch that I don't think is as funny as when we did it in the moment. You know, I'll go back and be like, oh, that wasn't that great. But it was shocking and it was over the line, and that's the essence of what that network exists for. And I think comedy is supposed to push those boundaries so we know how far we're supposed to go. You know, when Shane Gillis said, like, look, I made a lot of bad comedy in the past 10 years. I think that, you know, in those moments, you're like, all right, let's push and see how far it goes. And then you look back sometimes and you go, it wasn't as funny as I thought it was. Or, you know, that does exist. But you have to make those mistakes to get better.
Yeah. It's like about, and your whole show is like pretty much, what would you say? It's 80% improvised? How much of that?
99%
yeah.
improvised, 99.9.
So,
I mean, all we have is the stories that we send in, and the rest of it's just off the cuff, and we don't even get to the stories most of the time.
Yeah. So explain the dynamic for people who've never watched your show before, the dynamic between you, Gino, your other co-host, and then the 2 guys who work in the booth.
That's me, Gino, Steve, and Garrett. And it's just making each other laugh. And then, you know, I'll run into the booth a lot and kind of like produce segments and be like, let's get this sound effect, let's bring up this, and throw a mouth on this guy. Or but the Garrett and Steve are so brilliant now, it just kind of runs like a well-oiled machine. And it's just a free-for-all. It's like old school shock jock radio, but a TV show version of that. that's why it's so funny. I mean, I'll watch it sometimes. I'll watch clips. I'm like, holy fuck, this is funny. It's like SCTV on steroids. You know, it's just so all over the place.
It's like when Mad TV was at its best, like that kind of funny, but in a whole different way, like pushing the envelope. But it's very original and creative, and it's like, and you watch like the fucking shit they have on SNL. It's like I'll watch a whole episode of SNL and go, once, and then I watch your show and I'll be like puking,
Yeah,
tapping water out of my nose. So
it's so stupid, and we do like we break all the rules. Like we beat a dead horse, we beat a joke into the ground, and just keep doing it, and just keep milking the funny out of it, and acknowledge that it's being beaten into the ground. And then there's genuine moments of anger too, and there's genuine moments of fun, and then sometimes I just shove shit up my ass lately. I don't know why. I've just been like, I'm gonna put this up my ass.
going through
It's
it.
weird.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
When do you think of your ideas? Is it like, are you ever like the night before writing stuff down, the morning of, thinking
Never.
about it?
We
Never?
don't think. It's an old, like, it's
Wow.
weird because it's like an old UCB motto. It's just don't think. And that's the same way I approach my stand-up. And I think if anything, that's probably helped me back in terms of, doing specials or doing, whatever it is, because there's no preparation. It's always, Ryan Belville, who was a really good comic in Canada, he had a tattoo and it was don't prepare. And I always think that is just like, it keeps you so in the moment. You got to be on your toes all the time because you have nothing to fall back on. There's no notes. There's nothing. So even when I'm on stage, it's just like, okay, got to get laughs. Where are they coming from? Where's the brain going next? And it keeps the brain working really quickly.
Yeah, it's like there's what you're saying, there's the bit you're saying, but then you're also thinking about, what am I going to say next? Am I going to talk to the crowd? Am I going to, acknowledge this drunk girl in the front row? Am I going to acknowledge this guy with the pink sweater? And like, you're one of the ultimate, like, best people I've ever seen, like, obviously hosting, but your crowd work is like so phenomenal. How do you think that developed? Like, how did you, were there any particular things that inspired you, or was it just from you, doing stand-up for years?
Realistically, Big J Ogerson, I think, because like I was really good scripted, and I had like an hour that I thought was gonna be my breakout hour on HBO, and it was all about when I was a stripper and all the weird shit that I did as a stripper. And I just kept doing that act for years, and it was like nobody was biting on it. I wasn't getting in front of HBO. I wasn't getting in front of Showtime. So I'm like, I'm gonna throw this out. And I would watch Big J, and he was so smooth and off the cuff. And I was watching, I was like, oh, he's really, you look at who the best people around are, and you're like, okay, I get that style. It's very jazzy. I'm gonna do my own version of that. And I think that knowing that he could have success by doing that was like, I could have success if I find something that's my own, that's different from everybody else. And that was it. I mean, definitely. But then, there's also the people before that were like really hard cutting. And that was originally how I wanted to be as a comic, was like this Pryor type guy. But then you just watch people like, oh, let's just have fun. And not every moment has to be poignant and deep. And let's just make these people laugh. So that's how it developed, was why I'm not going to do this act anymore, because it didn't get the momentum that I thought it was going to get.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, you're just so good at improvising, and it's like, you are so in the moment. It's like really amazing
Thank you.
to see. So you're working on a new special now? Like, that's what
I am trying to put a special together. I mean, I've only been, the longest spot I've done since we've been back is 27 minutes. So it's going to be a while until it gets together. But, I haven't done a special. I did the documentary, 25 sets, but I haven't done a real special. And I think it's got to be shot in a way that it is me, and it's not just necessarily an hour of material. I think it's got to be everything that I do. The shock's got to be in there. The crowd work's got to be in there. All that stuff has to be in there. So I have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you'll find a way. It's just, yeah, things are harder.
Yeah.
Fucking weirder right now. Was there ever anything like getting back to In Hot Water? Was there any like regarding Gino? Because I know he pushes the button. I know he's like, but like there was, I mean, months back, he like dropped the N word kind of unnecessarily, and then we'd be like, Gino, stop it! Like, you'll even say like, and you're ruining the clips. Like any possibility of this going on YouTube as a clip, like you just like you will poke fun at him. Like, does Gino make you nervous? Is there anything he ever did or said that made you like really concerned?
No, I mean, I love having, he's the fall guy, and he knows he is, because he's like, I got nothing to lose. So that's why it's a great partnership. But it's also like, I think that there's two ways to look at it. Either you really buckle into what you're doing, or you try and change it to appease somebody, and he's not going to do that. So he's just going to do what he does, and it may cost him opportunities, but it may open up other opportunities. So he's a bit of a wild gun, but I think it's a good thing for the format that we're in.
Yeah, he's really good at hosting that, and he just rolls with it. He's just like, you both are just so yes and, which is another big improv principle. Like, did either of you guys ever take improv? Because it's like
I started at Second City. I took like 2 classes at Second City, and then I was like, oh, this is really fun. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing stand-up. So I think that there's definitely influences of that improv world in what I do, for sure. I don't think it's my bread and butter necessarily, but I'm better in the moment than I am scripted all the time. All the time. There's no exception.
There's no way to make money doing improv unless you're TJ and Dave. They are the only people. I mean, yeah, you could look at the UCB for maybe but now the UCB is bankrupt. So, yeah, that was part of the reason why I turned to stand-up too, because it was just like, I did improv for 5 years, and I ultimately was like irritated with like the lack of autonomy and how you're just,
and getting raped by all the guys in your classes.
No, I'm a little offended. Nobody ever tried to rape me the whole time I was at the UCB. I mean, I did have one of the, I don't know if
that's so funny. You should write a blog for like, nobody ever tried to rape me at UCB. It's a very funny concept.
I did. There was like an older, I don't know if he was on a house team, but there was someone who, made out with me and I think fingered me in the basement. But other than that, like, really no takers, which is upsetting. Mm-hmm. But I had very short blonde hair at that time, so I guess I understand.
Very fingerable for an improv chick, short blonde hair.
Thank you. I like to think of myself as fingerable at best, And I wouldn't hold anybody. I'm very much all about being a team player. I'm not gonna, make a fuss. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm just gonna be like, hey, what did I get out of this?
It's a good name for an improv troupe, the Fingerables.
Fingerables, yeah. But that's good that you've been able to take all these key, improv elements into the show, and it's like everything is so like yes and I really miss, like, before I pitched my own show, like I miss going on in Hot Water and doing those characters, because that's the shit that makes me feel the most alive. Yeah, like a lot of the characters are scripted, like what I'm gonna say, but there's just something so fun and freeing about like taking like a unstable person in the world and then be like, okay, twisting them in a way.
You had hits. Greta Thunberg was a hit. The Woman in the Recycling Bin was a hit. Kate Willett was a hit. Michelle Wolf was a hit. There's so many hits. We're so good on that show.
That's the one thing, like, I wish I had more time to do, or maybe that just means I need to dedicate more time to doing that. But yeah, so that's good that Gino doesn't make you nervous. And it's like he did an episode, like I think he did actually the very first episode of the podcast. He was all about like, yeah, I'm not gonna, like, if I am to change who I am, I'm gonna be fucking miserable. And if I do comedy to make a certain group happy, I'm not being true to myself, and it's ultimately not gonna be as good. So yeah, you might as well lean in and let your real people find you.
Yeah. I mean, Anthony's good at that. On Twitter.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. He's really hard.
What made you want to get a show on Compound Media?
It was an accident. I think they were, I think Legion of Skanks was leaving. And Gino and I both filled in for Kumia when he was in rehab. So then we started doing a show, and they're like, hey, you guys have a show. Do you want to do it here? And we're like, yeah, of course.
Wow.
So we did. And we just kind of stumbled into it by accident. And it was when Legion of Skanks left, and they kind of needed a good, funny, edgy show. And it just turned out to be us.
How did you, so you didn't formally pitch it? He was more just like, oh, I like you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who were the other shows on at that time when you guys started?
I don't know. I'm guessing Morning was maybe already there, but I think that was it. Maybe Gavin. Oh yeah, Gavin must have been there. And that was amazing to watch how that blew up from what it was to how he became this alleged hate monger, and we talk about this now where it's like, I've met a whole bunch I would go to Canada and like Proud Boys would come out and watch my shows. And it was at the time when they were so taboo, you're like, you don't want to be associated. And they didn't, if you knew the whole backstory, these didn't seem to be bad people. But the media wanted you to believe they were bad people. And if you look back, they were the only people keeping Antifa in check. And then it's like all of a sudden the Proud Boys were gone. It's like Antifa blew up into this nationwide thing. Yeah. I bet most cities wish that they had the Proud Boys back now. Yeah. So to watch Gavin blow up into this thing where it was just this morning talk show, and I went in and did it a couple times. Then you watch like these woke bitches like Jess Solomon and Iman El Husseini, who are so woke, and then there's like footage of them on his show. And they're like, oh, we thought he was playing a character.
Yeah, a lot of people who like come out against compound media, you look back in the archives, you're like, wait, you've done 1 episode, 2 episodes, 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. So it's so weird to me. Like, why do you have to make a point at being, quote, better than a whole network when you were on it? Just sort of like,
yeah,
quietly
they hate the whole network.
What you do,
I mean, people hate, Gas Digital. I don't think as much. I think that, there's people that hate Legion of Skanks and hate VLS Podcast. But people will hate anything that's either funny or honest, when these people are trying to build a fucking smoke screen to take away from their transgressions. But it was a good, it seemed like a good move at the time. And it was like, we can say whatever we want. So I think you really lean into that. And I think that's why those earlier episodes, where like I'm doing Kaepernick and I've got a gorilla mask on, and where ISIS faggot came from, it's like we could do whatever we want because we're behind a paywall. So only these people are seeing it. And, you don't think, oh, this is going to come back. And obviously like now you're like, oh boy, I did all that. But nobody has really owned any of that stuff. Nobody has stepped up and said, yeah, I did it. We thought it was funny. If you don't like it, don't watch it. No one does that. Everyone either apologizes or something. And I think it's going to take someone to be like, yeah, we did it. I get it. You don't like it. That's fine. We liked it at the time. And to say that gives it power. And I think that inspires other people to want to push instead of trying to backpedal.
Like cower. Yeah, and apologize for things you like. Fallon did it, like Kimmel, like all these people that are like, at the time, their intent was not to hurt or be malicious or be racist. They're just like doing impressions. And it's like, why do you have to be like, oh God, I don't know what I was thinking? Because they're trying to avoid the cancel mob. But in the meantime,
they know what they were thinking. They want to be edgy comics and they want to push. That's why you do it. You don't do it because you're like, oh, I'm just going to put blackface on and be silly. You're doing it to push. Because I did Kaepernick because it seemed idiotic what he was doing at the time. And satire is a sharp knife and you want to stab into it. And that's the best way to do it. You can do it with a monologue, but that's just kind of meandering around it, That's why Trevor Noah is like, he's got writers. Nobody thinks of Trevor Noah as this great pusher of boundaries. They're like, hey, he's a good face for TV.
Just there. And that's like, I agree too. Because like, why get up off your ass and go to a comedy show unless it's going to push boundaries and make you like cry laughing? Why subscribe to a network if it's not going to be any different than what you see on network television? Like, why pay whatever $8 a month if you're not going to
which is a steal, by the way.
Yeah,
$8 a month for that network is a steal.
it really is. And weren't the whole like the thing with the Proud Boys with Gavin, wasn't that just started as a joke pretty much?
Yeah. It was like a men's drinking club, and then it turned into this thing, and it's like they want to clump everything together. That's just what that side does. It's like, if you don't believe in this, then you must be all of these 80 things, and it's just a horrible way to look at it.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and I feel like I don't know. I would like to start seeing, because as long as we have corporations, sponsors, and people that we need to sell out to and cater to and backpedal for and apologize for, right? Because that's why Fallon apologized. That's why anybody you see, in the media that's apologized for a bit, it's because they're afraid of losing their jobs or losing sponsors or whatever, like getting kicked out of the woke boat. And like as soon as we stop catering to that, I think you need to be okay with potentially losing a sponsor, because I think free speech is more important than that. And the more examples of that we see, the more it's going to be just like how the cancel mob is losing their impact, because people are saying, hey, it's not working anymore. And I hope that kind of, trickles up in a sense to like our comedians and our celebrities. You know what I mean? Like we should just like stop catering to it, and then maybe it'll stop being such a fucking thing.
It's gonna take people like us to be like, okay, let's all make our own stuff. Let's make our own movies. Let's make our own online sketch shows or whatever it is, which we can do now with limited funds, and put that out. And it'll take something like that hitting to make other people do it. But it has to be done carefully, and it has to be done precariously. And it's like, I have a quote unquote real show that I'm doing now. We have like 10 or 12 episodes in the can. And they reached out to me and they're like, hey man, you have an Instagram post up that I'm getting some heat about. And I was like, which one? And I'm like, Nick Cannon, Roseanne Barr. They're like, no, this thing that you did where you ran a poll. And I put a poll up. I'll usually take it down after a couple days for a poll because it's done. And I go, oh, which one? And he goes, this one. There was like a Trump reference. I go, there is no Trump reference. And I said, should I call my special the Central Park One? Thanks, China.
I remember.
And what was it? Oh, fund the police. So it's all like punny stuff.
Yeah,
and he's like, yeah, he's like, the big celebs that are looking at your Insta, they'll be a fan. And I was like, dude, and then they're like, if you get canceled, the whole show gets canceled. And, there's a lot of people working it. And I'm like, I just texted back. I'm like, look, I'm always going to be controversial. I don't understand. If you see me like that, that's not how. They're like, well, we know your heart. We know where the jokes are coming from. And it's like, so fucking tell other people that, and don't just blame me and tell me to curb myself, because I won't. I've been doing this too long. I know I'm not going to be an industry darling. So it's like, I'm going to do the stuff that I want to do.
Right. And that person, instead of trying to file you down and whatever, if they think they're just trying to cover their ass, right? So it's like,
that's exactly it.
Like they shouldn't be trying to make you, quote, less problematic. If they believe in you and they're already working on a project with you, guess what? You should redirect that energy to the people that you think are going to have issue with, and be like, and defend you. Use that energy defending you and your comedy, and be like, no, this guy's the real deal. He's fucking funny, and like, you're not going to love all his posts.
Yeah, I agree.
I would not want you to lose this gig or this project,
Yeah.
So it is hard to know, because you want a big break, you want a money-making gig. So maybe it's tricky. It's like, do you have to get to Dave Chappelle level to be at the point where you're like, yeah, I make enough money, I don't need to play by anyone else's rules, fuck it. But
it'd be nice to not have to do that. He played the game for a long time, and he deserves everything that he has, and he's also entitled to do the stuff that he did, like 8:42 or 46 or however long they knelt on George Floyd's neck for. But he's earned that. But it would be great if you didn't have to put all that stuff in, and just be able to be like, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm going to say, and do it. But, you know, you see the path of that. You look at a guy like Lenny Bruce or somebody that went down that road and how it ended for him. So,
yeah. Well, I think you're doing the right thing, and I'm a big fan, and I'm excited to see everything that's coming next for you.
likewise.
Aaron, where can people find you? If people are not following you, where should they go?
I'll be on the Chrissy Mayer podcast this week. Check that out. I'm on Twitter at Aaron Berg Comedy, Instagram at Aaron Berg Comedy, and in Hot Water Monday to Thursday. Our Patreon show, Gum Fridays, every Friday. Patreon.com/Gum Fridays. And I do stand up most of the time, and I usually talk about it.
Good, good. I love it, Aaron. Yeah, and that Gum Friday show is like, if you're not sure if you want to subscribe to Compound Media, and you know, Gum Fridays is a really good sampling of what In Hot Water is like. It's basically another episode, which is like fun, zany, new characters. It's like,
and we chew gum.
And you chew a lot of gum. Yeah, there's a lot of gum all over the desk. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show. Yeah, I'll tag all your stuff in the details.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Of course, of course. Oh wait, I need to do a commercial read.
Okay.
I gotta get my shoes together. Okay, I am very excited about this sponsor. Silk City Hot Sauce. Go to silkcityhotsauce.com. Use the promo code CMP and you will get 15% off your order. These guys are so great. Jeff and Enid, they really know their stuff. They run the company all by themselves. You know, if we want to help the economy out and get things running again, let's start with these small businesses who really care about their product and their customers. Again, go to Silk City Hot Sauce and order some Silk City Hot Sauce. They have so many different kinds. They sent me a bunch of stuff. I just used one of them like with my tacos, and I almost chugged the whole thing. It was so good. It was like tomatoey, and they sent me some like tonic. It doesn't have booze in it, unfortunately, but it looks really good. So yeah, use the promo code CMP. You'll get 15% off your order, and they will actually throw in a free bottle of cherry sriracha. Ooh, and some stickers. So use the promo code CMP, Silk City Hot Sauce. Woo! Thanks.
Boom. Thanks, Chrissy.
Love you. See you soon.
Love you. See you soon. Bye.